Is now in session. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Gannon,
Here.
Senator Crawford, Senator Carter,
Here.
Senator Coleman, Senator Koenig, Senator Rizzo, and Senator Washington.
Do we have a quorum? Okay, we do not have a quorum, and so we will
Just go ahead and start with you.
go ahead and start. Okay. Hey, might as well, right? I will be presenting first Senate Bill 744, and Senator Crawford will take over. Carter.
When she comes back.
Yeah.
Senator Gannon, whenever you are ready.
Hang on. Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, I am Senator Elaine Gannon, representing Missouri's 3rd Senatorial District. I'm here today to talk about Senate Bill 774, which slightly changes the deadline for filing a declaration of candidacy. To give you just a little bit of a background on why this is needed, we have to address House Bill 271, which was passed and signed by the governor in 2021. This bill included a provision that changed the closing date for filing a declaration of candidacy from the 11th Tuesday to the 14th Tuesday prior to an election. However, there were no provisions included in the event that the 14th Tuesday would fall on a holiday. This is an issue for local municipalities and school boards because the filing deadline for the April 2025 election will fall on December 31st of 2024. Obviously, most city clerks and school offices will be closed on that date in recognition of the New Year's holiday. The same can be said in 6 years when the filing deadline for the April 2030 election will fall on Christmas Day. All Senate Bill 774 does is make a small change to accommodate for these holidays. This bill would add a provision that extends the filing deadline to the next regular day if the original filing deadline falls on a holiday. This is a quick and easy fix to prevent any administrative issues that will arise in these upcoming elections. Thank you for the opportunity to present this bill, and I think I have some people here to testify.
I just have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Did you really mean it that it was quick and easy? Because is anything quick and easy in this building?
Well, you're right, Madam Chair. Yes.
Is there anyone here to testify in favor of?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I guess this is on, right? Can you
Is
hear
it
me?
green? It's a lit
Yeah,
up.
it's green,
Yeah.
okay. Nikki Strong here on behalf of the City of St. Peters. The original bill that was passed in 2021 was also passed in 2020 as part of a broader bill that ended up being vetoed by the governor for other reasons. We supported this legislation then. Our senator, Senator Eigel, was the one that kind of initiated this. So we support this. It was an unintended consequence not to account for the holidays. And so we'd love to see this change, this bill that we'd worked on for many, many years, but forgot to address the holidays.
No worries. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Any other witness here to testify in favor of the bill?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Richard Sheets. I'm the Executive Director of the Missouri Municipal League. And we'd like to go on record supporting Senate Bill 774 and appreciate Senator Gannon for introducing this and and making my city clerks happy because they really want this change. It's important to them. And plus, I think it's important for all our cities and political subdivisions. I'll try to answer any questions if I can.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank
Thank
you
you.
for your testimony. Are you testifying in favor of?
I am.
All right.
Chris Ropey, registered lobbyist here on the Missouri Association of County Clerks and Election Authorities. We are very happy for the senator to file this legislation, very supportive of it. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Any others in favor of?
Thank you. I will try to make this quick. Shannon Hawk on behalf of the Municipal League of Metro St. Louis, I think for all of the reasons stated, same reasoning, and thank you very much for giving this an early hearing.
Thank you. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you so much. Any others testifying in favor of?
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Marilyn McLeod with the League of Women Voters of Missouri, and we are in support of this bill. Thank you, Senator, for bringing it. I think this will make it certainly better for candidates and more open for candidates to be able to file. And just as a aside, we did have an issue with this. I come from Columbia, where literally there was a case brought, a legal case brought because the school district was closed on the holiday and the candidate couldn't file. So this clearly will help in that regard. So thank
Great.
you.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you so much for your
Thank you.
testimony. Anyone else favoring and testify of the bill? Seeing none, any testifying against or opposed to the bill? Seeing none, any testifying for informational purposes only? All right, thank you. Senator Gannon, do you have any other?
Well, thank you for allowing me to present this bill.
All right, thank you so much.
And now we will be hearing Senate Bill 816. Senator Carter. We're going to pause here for a second and take roll again.
Senator Gannon,
Here?
Crawford. Carter.
Here.
Coleman. Koenig. Rizzo. Washington.
We have a quorum. Okay. Senator Carter, if you are ready, you may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Senator Jill Carter representing the 32nd District. This bill, Senate Bill 816, deals with the election integrity. It's imperative that Missourians know that they can trust the validity of our elections. This bill changes election administration procedures to provide more transparency in our election process. First, this bill requires that electronic voting systems be open sourced and made publicly available to the Secretary of State so that they can be provided to any Missouri citizen upon request. This provides the ability for Missouri citizens to know the results that can be reproduced, if necessary, by an independent group. Second, these voting systems must be developed, owned, and maintained by an entity registered in the United States and owned by the United States citizens. If the business entity is publicly held, the board of directors and the majority stockholders shall be United States citizens. This helps provide oversight regarding legal jurisdiction. Third, it requires the Secretary of State to create unique IDs for each precinct based upon FIPS, or I had to look this up. I did not know that was it's the Federal Information Processing Standard. So it requires the Secretary of State to create those user IDs, codes used by the National Institute of Standards and Technology. This creates a standardized reporting mechanism for Missourians to have a better picture of election results at the precinct level. Fourth, it requires that a voter list be generated by the Secretary of State after the voter registration deadline has passed. This enables citizens who may be poll watching at precincts to know who is registered, ensuring all registered individuals have the right to vote. Finally, it requires the absentee ballots contain the previously mentioned FIP base codes so that ballots can be attributed back to their precinct when reported, instead of currently being reported as an absentee or central precinct. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the committee? Senator Crawford.
Just a quick question. What do you think it's going to cost to do these extra coding things by precinct? Any idea?
Well, we're working with Mizzou right now. We're talking to them about what it would cost to try to help develop the software. We do have some estimates from St. Louis. I think we included that on the substitute, but I'll be happy to share what information I have with you.
Okay, and then I know we have some very small voting precincts. That gives me a little bit of pause because, I mean, we could maybe have 10 or 20 people voting.
Mm-hmm.
You're pretty much going to know how they vote.
Right.
So that bothers me a little bit. What do you think about that?
So that again, that's something that we thought about taking and pushing this out a little bit. We know that some of them have contracts with the voting equipment that they currently have. We're working with the Clerks Association on some of the language, and we're very willing to work through some of those questions. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, we will start with those in support. Anybody here in support? Make sure you introduce yourself and that you fill out a witness form, and you will have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, and Senator Carter. My name is Linda Rance. I am Vice Chair of the Osage County Republican Committee. I am also a state lead for Cause of America, Missouri, a nonpartisan group that works on election integrity issues. I do not have expertise on source code or some of those technical issues, but I did want to speak to the issue of transparency of elections and some of the things that we've seen recently. And I'd like to give you an example specifically from Osage County. So Statute 115.493, which I know is not part of this bill, but it basically locks down all election data from the citizens. You need legislative action, a court order, or a grand jury in order to look at any ballot material. Now, there's a federal statute that keeps ballots sealed for 22 months. And as a citizen, we can't access any information or see any of that particular stuff, including in a recent case for what they call cast vote records. Now, at the end of the 22 months, it's at the discretion of the election authority on what they do with that material. In Osage County, after the 2020 election, I think it was last September, the clerk made a decision to not hang on to those ballots any further and decided to have them destroyed, shredded, whatever. The citizens had no idea because we've never been able to access that material. And the only way we found out is because somebody accidentally left a box of cast ballots on the back of the car going to the recycling plant, and they fell off in transit and ended up in a hillside in downtown Lynn. So somebody was posting on Facebook pictures of ballots that were cast, and you could see the votes that were cast. But the point is that for the citizens, from the time that the 22 months expired until we could actually access something, the clerk made a decision to destroy them, and when they ended up on the hillside, there was no repercussions because now they're considered trash. So transparency has become the biggest problem for citizens in this state to be able to see any materials. Also, cast vote records, which I won't try to explain in detail. There's a lawsuit out of Greene County that was supported by the Secretary of State against a citizen who requested that material. People across the state requested cast vote records. It just shows sort of the law of large numbers, how votes are cast, and you can kind of get some idea about it from the data. Again, not my expertise. We weren't allowed to have it. So this lawsuit was filed, and recently a consent agreement was signed between the parties, the citizen and the clerk of Greene County. And in that case, now that citizen apparently is going to get cast vote records from the 2020 election for Greene County. Now, other citizens have since then done open records requests, sunshine requests for the same material to the same county for a different election and been told that that lawsuit has nothing to do with giving us transparency into those cast vote records. So any bill, anything that we can do to give transparency to the people, this bill, all of the details in it, I know those pieces of data can be worked out, but the people want transparency. We want the ability to see what's happening in our elections. And in Missouri, I think we have some of the best election laws out there. I talk to people from every state in this country, and they always go, wow, you guys are really lucky. And we are. We have great election laws, but we almost have no transparency. So I would ask that there be support for this bill, whatever changes need to be made to do it, but we really want to have transparency. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Next in support. Introduce yourself, fill out a witness form. 5 minutes.
Hello, Gail Griswold, representing Armorvine. Just want to go on record in support of SB816. We had similar issues in our own county where we sunshined the cast vote records and were told that we weren't allowed to have that information. And I think it's important to actually promote election integrity and you know, just to show that we are doing great things in Missouri is to be transparent about that. So thank you.
Thank you. Next in support.
My name is Brandon Duncan. I'm from Gasconade County. I'm part of the Gasconade County Republican Club. I am here to say I am supportive of Senator Carter's bill, SB 816. I believe as long as we continue to use electronic voting machines, it should be a requirement that they are approved by the Secretary of State for sure. I do not believe that any of our voting machines that are used in our Missouri elections should be foreign-owned under any way, shape, or form. So I support that our electronic voting machines should be developed, owned, and maintained in the United States, and the business must be owned by United States citizens. I believe this bill would be a great start to keep foreign and electronic voting machines in any way, shape, or form out of the state of Missouri.
Thank you. Next in support.
Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Bev Allen. I'm speaking on behalf of the Warren County Republican Committee, and we had a more boring time with our last election. We were told no on the CBR, and we just left it. But anyway, and as much as the goal is to not have any machines, but until we have that day where we don't have any machines, I'm in support of this bill because it does have some regulation, even though we put too much confidence in regulations and certifications and all of that. It does provide for some transparency, and maybe it will help alleviate.
Thank you. Next in support.
Question.
Oh, excuse me, Bev. We have a question from Senator Crawford.
So, did I understand you correctly? You think we need to go back to hand counting ballots?
Yeah,
Do you know why we went to electronic counting in the first place?
I thought we probably were told to by the federal government, and they gave us some
No,
money
it was
back.
because there was too much corruption in the hand counting. And I'm getting head nods back behind you. That was a pretty well-known factor when we worked on the elections bill. And I can give you an example from my county because it was somebody I knew. Somebody kind of was questioning not how our counties voted them, but they just wanted to see how the process worked. So they were one of the ones that hand counted after the election last time. And they had to count those ballots 3 times to finally end up exactly where the machine was. So I'm here to tell you, hand counting is way less. It's gonna be a lot worse than you think. I can't even imagine hand counting. If it drags out for days and days, you think that's not going to get corruption. I would say that we're going to have a big problem. But I just wanted to see if you knew that. That's my understanding. Is that's why we went to the electronic counting machines anyway, is because the system was so corrupt.
Is there a question? I don't think so.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Okay, next in support. Is she getting up? Okay. Next, we'll go to opposition. First up, opposition. Please state your name, fill out a witness form, and you may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Chris Ropey again here on behalf of the Missouri Association of County Clerks and Election Authorities. Testify at this point against this legislation. We've had some really good conversations with the bill sponsor and are going to meet with her and several of the clerks from their executive committee this week to talk about it. Admire very much what she is trying to achieve with this legislation and think it's worthy of discussing. We all want to see more integrity, transparency. Those are all great things, but we also have to keep elections safe and secure. A little bit of heartburn about what's in the legislation right now and what that means, as was mentioned by other folks, on the current contracts that exist, and if you open up the source code and things of that nature, can be real problematic. And so look forward to having these conversations to figure out if there's a path forward here.
Any questions? Senator Crawford.
Just to go back to the question or the comments that I made to the previous witness, do you remember when that was that we went to the electronic? But I think you're aware of that situation, are you not?
Yes, Senator. I've seen articles, I think, back in the 50s in newspaper accounts of some pretty tragic things that occurred when hand counting did exist. And I think you get more accurate elections and quicker doing it the way we do it now with the paper ballots, but the electronic voting machines.
And we do keep those paper ballots. That we could go back and look at those if we had to.
Yes.
So, okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Yes, Senator Coleman.
I just wanted to see specifically, are you concerned about having proprietary machines?
Well, I think what the senator's proposal in the legislation has to do with moving away from that potentially and having a government ran or some sort of a partnership and what that looks like. So that changes things when you're looking at private companies who have a contract with your election provider, and then that private proprietary information becomes public, and what that means for those existing contracts and for their willingness to do business in Missouri.
Fair enough, but isn't all of the data that's collected public data already?
I think the data is, but, and I'm not a computer person, how source coding and all of that works, to be able to even explain the difference in why that's protected just from a private enterprise perspective. But I know there's a couple clerks
Listen,
here
I get
yeah.
why you wouldn't want to have made public private property that is protected and patented probably. Maybe those processes have
Yeah.
some sort of business protections in place, but if it's proprietary data by the state that's developed for the state to read public data,
And
is it just about closing off the contracts to those private entities?
well, I think it's part of that. I think there are some, what I believe is the code of state regulations that have some rules in place about that, that maybe could be looked at to have that discussion.
No, I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything in the bill that seemed to overturn those other protections that are in place in other areas of the statute, but I could have missed it. So your concern is that other protections that exist would be overturned by this language?
Not necessarily, not protections that exist. It is when you have, I don't know how many vendors have been approved by the Secretary of State to do, which I believe they're all U.S. companies.
I don't know if that's.
I'm not 100% sure either,
Okay.
but just some of the comments from earlier. If you have those existing contracts or you have vendors who wouldn't want to participate because of that concern, and then we wouldn't have that option to be able to run our elections if you had every. Now, if we go to some other way to do that in the future, there's possible options that exist, but as far as what we think would probably happen to those private vendors if this was changed the way I understand it, it would just be concerning with having the available vendors to do your elections.
Okay, thanks for helping me
And
try to
happy
understand
to come
your
by and
testimony.
talk about it any further or have some of the
No,
clerks
I
that
just want clarification about where you were coming from. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions for the witness? Seeing none. Next in opposition. Next in opposition. Seeing none, informational purposes only.
Well, Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Eric Fay. I'm the Democratic Director of Elections in St. Louis County. I'm also current president of the Missouri Association of County Clerks and Election Authorities. And again, just here for informational purposes, we're very appreciative of Senator Carter's willingness to speak with us in the meeting of the Clerks Association more about this as we work through this. Transparency of elections is a paramount concern for us. As the bill is currently written, the contracts that all the counties have with the voting machine vendors preclude us from releasing the source code because it's the intellectual property of these companies. And so if the source code was released by us, we would violate the contract. And if it was required that the source code be made public, no voting machine company would do business in Missouri. Currently, there are 4 that are certified to do business in Missouri. So that is a concern for us. As Senator Crawford mentioned, if there are no voting machine companies that'll do business in Missouri, then essentially we revert to hand counting. And I think I testified last session on one of those bills. And St. Louis City and St. Louis County were the first counties in Missouri in the 1950s to move to lever voting machines because there were rampant problems with hand counting. And I won't go on about that, but happy to answer any questions the committee has about any of this, voting machines, things like that. But thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none. Informational purposes only. Welcome, former State Representative Kurt Barr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am Kurt Barr, Director of Elections for St. Charles County. And one of the things the sponsor had mentioned as one of her goals for this bill is to help with reporting the vote totals in the absentee voter pool by precinct, so that it is, instead of having just one large total for this group of people, it can be seen more clearly in the different precincts. Couple thoughts on that. One, it's actually possible under current law to do that. It requires a different way of how we program our elections. It is more complicated on our end to do it that way, but it is possible, at least with my system, to be able to do it that way. We don't do it for a number of reasons. One, it's overly complicated nature. 2, especially in smaller elections, the people who vote absentee the most are our permanently disabled list, our UCAVA, overseas military voters, and then my election workers. And depending on how large that absentee group is, if you can narrow down, you might actually know those 3 populations, how they're voting. And it's just a little safer for their privacy to have that larger pool. Absentee voting, though, in general, is only other than November of 2020, is a small pool. All the other election data that we report by precinct. But there are ways of achieving the goal that the sponsor has other than the language of this bill, and I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the committee.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else for informational purposes only? Please state your name. Oh, you're leaving. Okay. Anybody else for informational purposes only? Seeing none, Senator, do you have some closing comments?
Yes, the intent obviously is to not be nefarious or anything like that. We're very transparent with the process that we're trying to develop, working with Mizzou, reaching out to them. We will do our best to over-communicate with you and the Clerks Association and with the Secretary of State's office. We're supposed to have a meeting this afternoon with him. So I will just keep you apprised as we continue down this process, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we have Senator Trent. Senate Bill 1199. And Senator, when you are ready, you may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. Curtis Trent, representing Senate District 20. Hopefully what we have is a simple bill. So under current law, no person is entitled to vote while confined under a sentence of imprisonment or while on probation or parole after conviction of a felony until finally discharged from such probation or parole. This bill changes that. The only prohibition would be for individuals who are confined after the conviction of a felony or after conviction of a felony or misdemeanor connected with the right of suffrage. So just as the bill says, it's a restoration of voting rights bill, and I think it would be a great step forward for our state as we're trying to, as we have expungement laws and other things that we're trying to work on to get people rehabilitated back into society. This is just one more item that we can use to help to encourage people to rejoin society, not to recidivize, and to become productive tax-paying citizens once again, and restore them to where they would have been had they not become involved with the justice system. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the bill handler? Seeing none, those in support?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Denise Lieberman. I'm the Director and General Counsel of the Missouri Voter Protection Coalition, which is Missouri's nonpartisan state voting rights table that works to advance free, fair, and accessible elections for all Missourians. We come today strongly in favor of Senate Bill 1199, which would restore voting rights to Missourians after they have served their time in incarceration, even if they're on probation or parole for a felony conviction. This is a much-needed reform whose time has come to Missouri. Nationwide, 4.6 million people, 1 in 50 Americans of voting age, are disenfranchised because of a felony conviction in their past. And the vast majority of them are not incarcerated. 75%, 3/4 of these individuals who are disenfranchised because of a criminal record in their past are not incarcerated, but have served their time, are living in our communities, working, paying taxes, and yet have no voice in their government. In Missouri, we have approximately 60,000 Missourians who are on probation or parole. Studies confirm, and they are universal in confirming, the social science data is unequivocal, that restoring voting rights has positive impacts on reducing recidivism, reducing crime, and promoting good citizenship. And this makes sense. If you believe your voice is wanted, you have a stake in your community, and you are far more likely to be a positive contributor to your community than a negative one. And this is one reason why many states, including states in the South, are moving forward with reforming their voting laws in the way that Senate Bill 1199 proposes. Last year alone, Minnesota, New Mexico restored voting rights, and we're seeing this trend happen across the country. And we urge Missouri to join this list to promote good citizenship, reduce recidivism, and ensure that the full swath of our communities are able to make their voices heard. Because we know that voters of color are significantly disproportionately impacted. 1 in 19 African Americans of voting age is disenfranchised because of a felony, which is a rate 3.5 times that of their non-African American peers. And our democracy is missing something when we are not allowing all voices to be heard. Given the positive impacts to our democracy, the positive impacts to reducing crime and recidivism, we strongly urge this committee to vote yes on Senate Bill 1199.
Thank you. This question might be for the bill handler. What if an individual is incarcerated twice and they come out the second time? Would this bill apply to them?
I believe as it is written now, I don't see anything that would change that, but
So what you're saying is
I believe that, yeah, I believe you would be able to.
Okay.
Because of the way it's written, it's all about whether or not you're confined.
Okay. So if
Or
they're
or finally
incarcerated twice, they
discharged.
would still be able to vote. Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
That's our reading of
Okay.
the bill, too, that you'd
Okay,
be
any-
disqualified while incarcerated.
Any other questions? Yes, Senator Carter.
Just out of curiosity, I'm wondering if you know how many of them were voters prior to incarceration. Do we have just statistics on how many of them are registered voters prior to incarceration?
That might be a better question for the Secretary of State or one of the several election authorities in the room. But given that some people remain incarcerated for lengthy periods of time, that time that they are behind bars could create sufficient time that end up purging them from the voter rolls. Right now, your right to vote is restored upon completion of any time under supervision, including probation and parole. But you would have to re-register if your voter registration has lapsed or if you've been purged off the voter rolls. And the same would be true for individuals under this bill.
So do you have the statistics that are pointing to the fact that they're better citizens after incarceration?
Yes,
that
in
you
fact,
might be able to share?
there is a great deal of social science data on this exact topic because states have been in the process of revising their rights restoration laws over the last 2 decades or so. We've seen a real growing trend across America, and so there's actually a great deal of social science research on this, and it all points in the same direction, that it reduces recidivism and promotes good citizenship and reduces crime in the states that allow people on probation and parole to vote.
If you could get that data, I would be enamored by it.
I would be
Thank you.
absolutely delighted to do so.
And then, are we also okay with restoring gun rights to people who have been charged? I mean, is this?
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Senator Carter, I mean, there's this bill does not relate to firearms, and so I'm simply here speaking about the rights of voters
That was
today.
probably more of a question to the bill handler. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Next in support.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. Chris Ropey again. This time I'm here on behalf of Secure Democracy USA. It's a national non-for-profit that works to improve election integrity and confidence in our election system. Appreciate the senator in filing this legislation. I will take an approach a little different than the social justice aspect, but from a running of our elections point of view, which is there's a lot of confusion right now with information getting from the DOC and the circuit courts involvement to the Secretary of State's office and the voter rolls, whether somebody is eligible to register to vote or not. This creates a very simple, bright line. If they walk into the clerk's office, they clearly are not incarcerated, and so therefore there's no confusion. You can look at states like Florida where several county clerks and their local election authorities there, in fact, told some folks they were allowed to vote, and they registered, and then they voted, and then they got in trouble with the local prosecutors because there was some confusion about what that looked like. So you completely eliminate any chance for that confusion, and you keep everybody wanting to continue to be a part of the process. And the last thing that I'll mention too is if you think about when you're going door to door for your elections, or your mayor, your city council, school board members, whatever the case might be, you're working off a registered voter list. So you aren't inquiring of those folks who have served their time, they're paying taxes, doing all the things that they're required to do under their probation and parole requirements. And you know, how do you want to treat these people? And there are studies that show you're more likely to keep that recidivism rate lower. I think it goes from like 25% to like 11%. And I'm not saying voting rights is the silver bullet in there, because obviously you're paying taxes, you're probably passing a drug test and doing all of those types of things, having a job. But everything together, you get ingrained back in your community, and it's a positive for everybody. 25 states have done this, so Montana, Ohio, a lot of really red states, if you look at it from that perspective, have done this as well.
Any questions for the witness? Yes.
Just looking for that data. Would be.
I will email you the
Awesome.
study for sure.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you. Next in support. State your name and fill out a witness form, and you may begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Smith. First, I am the founder and director of an organization called Missouri Justice Coalition. And in this organization, what I do is create an avenue for formerly incarcerated people as well as people who have loved ones in prison, an avenue for them to learn about how to advocate for themselves and their loved ones. People who are incarcerated and as well as formerly incarcerated deal with a lot of issues in society, and I am trying to aid them to rectify some of those. One of those issues is the voter disenfranchisement. To be fully transparent, I am also formerly incarcerated. I have served time with the Missouri Department of Corrections, and I was disenfranchised from voting as well. And I was actually a registered voter before I was incarcerated. But I want to talk to you all today about a term of a collection of issues, and they're called the collateral consequences of incarceration. And this is a collection of issues that people who are formerly incarcerated face besides our punishment, right? When you go to court and you've done something wrong and you receive a sentence and you go to prison and you serve your sentence, no one talks to you about these collateral consequences, like not being able to vote. Also, like housing. Today, I'm 47 years old. I cannot rent my own house or apartment because the city, this state, allows landlords to discriminate against people with criminal records, and I am discriminated against in that regard. So housing, voting, and many other areas are these issues of collateral consequences. And what they really tell us as part of, our society, right, is that we're othered. We are not fully citizens. We are not fully given our rights back. We are told that no matter, how you try to redeem yourself, serve your sentence, become a better person, our society tells us that that will not actually happen, that there will always be something that we're not able to, to do, that we are not able to become a active part of our community. There are so many people who are formerly incarcerated, and so many people incarcerated now understand, what justice is, the system. A lot of people before incarceration, and to the senator's point about people voting before, people were doing things, right? People were committing crimes and living in certain ways when they're younger, especially that they don't fully understand what they should be doing. But of course, when you go to prison, you're supposed to be rehabilitated, right? You're supposed to learn those lessons about, civic engagement, how to rectify your issues with someone civilly and those things. And you really learn how to engage with community. But once you come home, you're not actually fully allowed to. So I'm here to speak for those people. Now, today I am able to vote, but I am speaking for those people who are not able to, who for many years, even though they work, they pay taxes, they are members of their community and their family. A lot of people are doing great work in our communities who are formerly incarcerated, and they are not allowed to vote. And it's just one way our society tells us that you will continue to be punished, that you will continue to be othered, and you are not fully a citizen of Missouri. And I ask that you all pass this Senate Bill 1199 to rectify that, to allow all of us to take part in our society as we should be able to. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none. Next in support.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jeff Smith. I'm representing Missouri Appleseed, a nonprofit which works with low-income people who are involved in the justice system, as well as the ACLU. So first, I want to thank the sponsor for bringing this bill forward. I want to acknowledge that anyone who's been incarcerated, almost everyone has made pretty serious mistakes, which is why they're there. But it doesn't mean they should continue paying for their crime after their release and even the rest of their life in a lot of cases. Look, when you walk into a prison, you're stripped of your clothes, you're given a uniform, you're stripped of your name, you're given a number, you're stripped of your voice, any say in pretty much any matter. And coming home from prison can be a very challenging experience because there's thousands of laws that continue to affect your ability to live where you want to live, as the previous witness said, to work, to obtain certain occupational licenses, and to be a full citizen. And all of those things combined send a message that brands people with a sort of scarlet letter F for felon. For a decade, after I got out of prison. I was involved in the reentry space in various capacities, including doing direct service with hundreds of people who were recently released from prison. And I found that the biggest indicator separating people who committed new crimes versus people who flew straight was fundamentally whether they continued to feel shunned by society or whether they felt included by society. Those who felt alienated due to some of the laws that we've heard about today, including this one, the current statute on this, or receiving, certain occupational licenses or other things, often became very discouraged and tended to recidivate. Those who felt embraced, included, and given a stake in society tended to be much more likely to reintegrate successfully. And it's human nature, I suppose. When you feel totally rejected by your community, then it's probably a lot shorter leap to commit crimes against that community. Multiple studies have confirmed this. I'm happy to send some as well to you, Senator Carter, with the following findings. Number one, those whose voting rights were restored post-incarceration had lower recidivism rates than their counterparts in states that did not enact statutes like Senator Trent's bill. Secondly, research shows that banning people from voting ostracizes them, it can be psychologically harmful, and negatively affects their interest in remaining law-abiding. I'll quote from one study from the University of Pittsburgh. Subjects reported whose voting rights were restored reported stronger trust in government, stronger trust in the criminal justice system, and a highly increased willingness to cooperate with law enforcement. So we do see this. We see this in the trend across the country for statutes like this. We should work together to make our communities safer and make sure that no one is faced with taxation without representation. Thanks for giving me the chance to share my perspective. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you. Next, in support. Also a fellow representative.
Good afternoon, Senator. My name is Jeremy LaFavor, appearing today on behalf of Empower Missouri. We want to go on record for many of the reasons stated above. We're an anti-poverty organization, and restoring voting rights helps get people back to self-sufficiency and on the way to success. So we're supportive.
Thank you. Any questions for the witness?
Thank you.
Thank you. And another state representative. Welcome, Jeanette.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, I'm Jeanette Mott Oxford, and I'm not appearing today as a former state representative or for any organization for which I'm a registered lobbyist. I'm here today as Jeanette Mott Oxford, a resident of the 5th Senatorial District and a member of the prison ministry at Epiphany United Church of Christ. Our congregation, influenced by Hebrew and Christian scriptures, believes that all people are made in the image of God, and that we have better results in society when we remember to treat ourselves like we are made in God's image, and when we treat everybody else like they are too. We think that the right to vote is part of our inherent dignity as human beings, and that the Senator's bill is a really important step in that direction. So thank you, Senator, for filing this bill. I had a meeting for my employer this morning here in town, and noticed, hey, if I hurried, I could stop at the Capitol and go on record in support, since I mentioned last week that the only way we can go on record is to be here physically. So I could do that today, and I thought I'd just stop and offer a word from the prison ministry of my church for this bill that we consider very important.
Thank
I welcome
you.
any questions you
Any
have.
questions? Seeing none, thank you, Jeanette. In support?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Alex Eaton representing Secure Election Project. Out of respect of time, we just want to echo all the witnesses previously and appreciate Senator Trent bringing this bill forward. Happy to support and happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Next in support, state your name, fill out a witness form, please.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Madam Chairperson. My name is Marilyn McLeod. I'm with the League of Women Voters of Missouri, and we are in support of this bill and want to thank the Senator for bringing it forward. Everything's been said pretty much. Just what I think is a good thing about it is I believe it does have bipartisan support. And I think that's the best thing ever. And just a little thing that our organization does a lot of voter registration. I mean, that's kind of a key function that we do. And I know there have been many times where we, offer to register people and they say, I don't know if I can. And then when they see the form where you have to sign and it says under penalty of perjury, so if someone has previously, doesn't realize that they are eligible to vote now, having completed everything, I think this bill will clarify that and make it less of a worry for people and for those of us who try to offer this opportunity to our fellow citizens.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you. Next in support. State your name and fill out a witness form, and you may begin.
I have my witness form.
Thank you.
Here. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Marcel Higgins. I'm Policy Coordinator with Action St. Louis. One of our core missions is to increase the political power for Black people in the city of St. Louis, and we feel that SB 1199 will be pivotal in doing that for us. I just want to make 2 quick points because I would basically be reiterating everyone's previous comments, but I want to say 2 things. One, when people, our formerly incarcerated individuals, come back home, not only do we expect them to have a job and a place to stay, we also expect them to pay taxes. We expect them to pay taxes, but we do not allow them the ability to speak or have a say in if they want to increase the taxes in their neighborhood, if they want to support specific TIFs or support specific elected officials in their neighborhoods, because we limit their right to vote, excuse me. So we are essentially limiting and continuing to limit their voices. I also want to state that the conversation here is literally just that, giving people an opportunity to speak again. They'd served their debt to society, so to speak. So in the same way that we require them to have a formal or stable way of life, we shall also require them to be able, or give them the opportunity to be able to voice how they want to see the world around them. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you. Next in support. Okay, next in opposition. Seeing none, informational purposes only. Seeing none, Senator, do you have any closing comments?
No, Madam Chairman, just appreciate the committee's time and consideration.
Thank you. Everybody have a great afternoon, and local government and elections is adjourned. Remind me to tell you about the VFW event yesterday, okay? When we get upstairs. Yeah.